Hey everybody, it's Friday night in the shop. Let's get back to the 441. I had a lot of comments on what to do and what not to do. Nothing concrete from anybody that's really ported them, so, well, let's just make this thing great or ruin it. Let's get to the bench and let's talk about what my thoughts are on this saw and what I'm going to do to it. Okay, here is our cylinder. Some people were saying maybe drill some holes. Now, these are fed separately. This isn't like the 372X torque is easily modified because all they did was put a bigger intake and divide the intake. So what you do is you cut the divider out of the intake boot. This one, these are fed separate from this. Now, a fella could drill through here and feed into this transfer, because this goes up and over, okay? This transfer. Okay, and these are your Strato ports. That puts fresh air back into the mixture. Okay, I don't think we're going to do that, though. I could be wrong, friends. If I wreck this, I'll hit Wolf Creek up and we'll get another cylinder or two. I think what we're going to do in this cylinder, I think I'm going to cut the bottoms of these off to feed them better. We got to look at our piston. I'm going to go grab it. Okay, so this is all saws. What can you do and what can't you do based on limitations of the design? So the first thing you got to do is, where are your ring locators? Well, there's one here on the exhaust side. One thing I'm going to do, friends, I don't really like this. They didn't clean this up very nice. That's rare for a highway piston. Okay, I will go in and I'm going to clean this piston up, but one ring locator here and one dead center. So, again, the other thing is, friends, if you go in here, I don't even think I can do that. But if you look how narrow this intake is, well, this doesn't have a ton of material on the sides of the intake, okay? Now look. See that? There's maybe 100 thousandths on either side, so we can't really widen the intake, can we? Just a hair. We can lower it. There was a comment on the last video and it said, hey, I've heard if you lower these, they get lazy. Okay, that is possible. Some people told me to jack the compression up. I'm not sure how much I like that idea. I mean, we could. But again, I like to do builds that you guys can copy, so we're going to keep the lathe out of this one. If this thing's a lame duck, well, we can make a lathe. We can take another top end and lathe the living bejesus out of it, but I'm trying to keep this simple. These saws are mostly unwanted. People don't like them. Maybe you can buy one cheap and make it nasty and have something that runs with the most nasty ported saws. So the question is, what can we do to this? Well, I can cut these transfers out. Okay. Again, though, let's have a look. Intake side is here. If we cut the transfers out, are we affecting anything? Yes, we are. Okay. If we cut these transfers out, we may end up mixing. Okay, we may end up putting some transfer charge in here. Now, I don't know how that's going to affect it, but these line up with your fresh air ports, okay? So, and again, friends, when this comes all the way down, okay, let's put it all the way down at the bottom of the cylinder. That's generally as far as a piston will travel. And right to here. And if we look, notice you can't see. Let's put the light on here. you can't see that transfer port, okay, the bottom one, because they flow into here. Now, if I cut these out, okay, the back ones or the front ones, well, guess what? Or the back ones, we will be dumping transfer air into the piston, okay? Kind of like deleting an X-torque when you cut the divider out of an X-torque intake. That will also add a ton of bottom end, a ton of case capacity. It'll make this thing run less lean. Now, I don't know what the M-tronic's going to do, but I think we should cut these out just to see. This piston will be well supported front and back. The sides, not so much. We'll have to really make sure that we chamfer this because this will be running in and out of there. We could create problems with that. Somebody said these modern auto-tune M-tronic saws really like short blowdown. And I agree and I disagree with that because, well, all modern saws are short blowdown. Every one that I've measured is short blowdown. Like the 550 that I showed at the end of the last video. Maybe the fella didn't get that far. Okay. The reason this saw is short blowdown, the 562 is short blowdown. Most of these modern saws, the 461 is short blowdown. The reason is because the transfers are long and they change directions, right? 1, 2, 3 direction changes. In the airflow business, like I work in, I move air for a living. I design heating and cooling systems for residential applications, so that's what I do. The equivalent of each of these 90s would be about the equivalent of the total length. Okay, so this is about 2 inches. Well, you can add 1, 2, 3 times that. Okay, so 2 inches really is about 7 or 8 in this case. They're also square. Round will always outflow square. That's a conversation for another day, but okay, or it should outflow square. So again, we have big, lazy transfers, not a lot of pump. This is a short stroke, small displacement saw. So we have not a lot of pump. We have a short stroke, and we have a lot of case capacity. Now, these have stuffers in them, which helps. That's one of the reasons why. But again, the reason why this is short blowdown is because they need to open these transfers as soon as possible because the transfers don't flow. Okay, does that make sense? So what I'm going to do now, friends, I'm just going to get to porting. I'm going to do my thing. I think I'm going to open these up. I don't know if that's a good idea. It might be a horrible idea. We're mixing fresh fuel and air with stratified air, no fuel in it. Will that lean this saw out? Will it? I don't know. Will the computer compensate? I don't know, friends. I don't know how these work. Know nothing about them. But I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut the bottoms out here, which won't affect sealing this. I don't want to open these up because, look, this is about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, okay? We don't have a lot of room here. I may raise the transfers, but I'm not sure yet, friends. I'm not sure. So let's start with modifying the lower transfers and maybe raise the exhaust a couple degrees and lower the intake a couple degrees. And I think that should be sufficient. The reason why I don't want to raise the transfers is this saw is long blowdown. They designed this saw to get the most amount of exhaust out of the exhaust port before the fuel and air starts coming in through the transfers. So that right there tells me that they need a low combustion chamber pressure to feed this thing, or that's what I'm getting. I don't know though, friends. I could be right, I could be wrong. I'll decide when I'm done whether I'm going to go into these upper transfers. It wouldn't take much to raise them. Okay, I'm going to get to grinding, modding, and then I'll show you guys my progress when I'm done. Okay, here's the lower transfers roughed in. Just going to grab the stock cylinder so we can compare. Stock. Ported. Okay, now what I did was, people ask me, how do I do this and that? How do I cut those bottom skirts off? I use a hacksaw, friends. Use a hacksaw, line it up, and I cut both sides at once, and then both sides at once, and both sides at once. Just be careful, eyeball it so you don't cut through your base. If you cut it a little bit, it won't hurt. Just put some assembly silicone in there. Okay, notice I tapered them in. Now, I don't want to add a ton of case capacity to this saw because I don't know what it's going to do. Now, this is the wild card, friend. And I don't know what this is going to do. I basically deleted the air injection on this. Okay, I still got a little bit of finish work to do. I'm just going to go in here and wipe this out. I've chamfered this already. Okay, this should really help feed these transfers. Now, if you look at this piston, I'm just going to wipe it off here. Okay, the piston goes in and out nicely. I have to deburr the front of this piston. Now, friends, I deburr every piston I get. Even Meteor and Highway, the pistons are generally really, really nice, but I hand sand everything, okay? Now, if you look, friends, okay, when this comes down now, if it goes all the way to the bottom, see what's going on here? A little bit of that charge is going to go into here. I don't know what that's going to do. I don't know if that's going to make it lazy. I don't know if that's going to give it more power, less power. But again, we're feeding the X-Torque ports with the primary transfer, okay? So basically, the X-Torque ports are going to end up with fuel in them, because when this goes up, okay, when this goes up, it's going to gather some of that air through this port here, okay, and that air is going to be sitting in there, and that air fills this orifice from what I can see. And then, when the piston goes up, that air ends up in the transfer. The upper transfers. From what I can tell, friends, on this saw, that seems to be the order of operations. They're just mixing air around in there to try and make it cleaner on the exhaust stroke. So, that's what we have, friends. We literally, I could cut this out more, but I'm not going to. We just have a little bit of mixing going on, okay, at the bottom. But here's the thing, friends. On the upstroke, okay, look, it's covered. So, all I'm doing here, friends, is I'm letting a little bit of extra air in at the very bottom of the stroke. Now, I don't know if that's going to depressurize the bottom end, because think about it. This thing's at max squeeze on the way down, but at bottom dead center, okay, at bottom dead center, those transfers are already very, very open. They are wide open, okay? So, just think about how things work. Take the piston and put it up and down. Okay, at bottom dead center, those transfers have already been open for 100 degrees or 50 degrees. I don't know the exact timing. I can't remember what this thing times at. But these things have been open for about 50 degrees already by the time it hits bottom dead center. Okay, and they've been open 25 degrees by the time this goes to the bottom. So the question is that going to add more fuel and air, or is that going to make this thing run horribly? Well, we're going to find out. Okay, friends, so all that's left now, I'm going to lower the intake a couple degrees, and I'm going to raise the exhaust a couple degrees. I'll show you guys that, and we'll call this a finished cylinder. I'm not going to do a ton of this because I'm not sure. This should be enough to give a substantial airflow increase to this saw. There's not a lot of case capacity in this bottom end, but because I've added this, these are all case capacity. Because I've added that, and I'm counting on a little bit of bottom end going into this area, I think. I'm not sure, friends. What actually might happen is on the way down, this thing is already filled up with air, and clean air is going to end up going around and into the transfer and pushing that little extra last bit of exhaust, or pushing that little last bit of transfer into the cylinder. Okay, I don't know, friends. This is just a crazy idea I had, and once I lighted everything up, I was like, hey, how do we delete this thing? Okay, like we would on an X-Torque 372. Well, that's enough. Again, I don't know what this is going to do, friends, so we'll just play it by ear and see what it's going to do. Okay, I'll hit you guys back when I finish this thing. Okay, and I made a few last-minute decisions, mainly the exhaust. I widened it. I did some measuring, friends. Maybe you can see it. I traced the exhaust port on the piston. Again, if that kind of thing bothers you, buy 2 pistons, use one for mock-up and one to build the saw. And you can see there's small scratches, and that doesn't bother me. That'll just hold oil. But I widened the exhaust port there was 400 thousandths of overlap on each side. Okay, I widened the exhaust port about 200 thousandths. Okay, now I'm not quite done porting and shaping, but that's how far I'm going to go for today. I need a new burr for putting my chamfer in. You guys can see I widened it 200 thousandths on each side is that much. About that much, friends. Okay, almost a 1/4 inch for reference. Okay, so that means we've kept 25 degrees of blowdown and our exhaust is still at 101. Intake, I just went by eye. I shaped it a little bit. Okay, there wasn't much I could do with this intake. The only difference now is there was a lip at the bottom here, and I cut the lip out. Okay, if you look now, it is a straight shot into the bottom. And you can see I've been going in there with my burr. That's what you can see there. This is to start my chamfer. And I don't know what this is going to do, friends. It's going to be, it's an interesting experiment. I'm curious what I can and can't do. Now, again, when you're done porting, I haven't cleaned this up all the way, and I did that on purpose. Okay, do a drop test. It drops okay, it goes all the way to the top. But friends, when I'm pulling this back down, I can feel it's grabbing a little bit, and that's because I don't have a full chamfer on anything, okay? It's not really marking up the piston, but just in and out, feel what it's doing. See? Now, if I left that like that, it would catch, okay? And I think it's catching a little bit at the top of the intake. I've already chamfered this though. But again, the exhaust port, I'm not done shaping it. So we'll just go in there and do our thing. But there you go, it's wider. And I think it'll be just fine. This cylinder ground beautifully. No chips that I could see. Sometimes they chip. Okay, no chips. The only place that chipped was the top when I was using my hacksaw, and I don't even care about that. Yeah, I chipped it a little bit here. But again, that was hacksaw work. But actual grinding, no problem. You see the corners there? They look good. So this highway plating seems to be getting better and better and better over the years. At times, back in the day, it was a little bit chippy. But I figured something out, friends. Chipped plating generally is from bad tooling. I noticed that. Your tooling has to be razor sharp. And I mean razor sharp, and you generally will not chip anything. So, just food for thought. Anyways, friends, there we go. We'll do some finish work on this. I may open these lowers a little bit more, but this thing's pretty much ready to slap together. This weekend, I'm going to have to throw the whole saw in the ultrasonic, but other than that, we may polish this exhaust a little bit. But other than that, we can throw this together and see, did I wreck this or did I make it work? Do you guys think this is going to work? Post a comment below. I think it'll work just fine, but that's just me. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Take her easy, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.